Alrighty, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. This one is called The Dragon Paradox by Curious Archive. And I'm not going to say this in no uncertain terms. I fucking love dragons. Alright? So, anything about dragons I'm here for. I don't know, I'm not sure why it's called a paradox, but we're about to find out. Let's get right into it. Just me, or is that really loud in my...
The problem started with a book.
Uh-oh.
Actually, I
What kind of
suppose
problem?
it started with a show.
Oh, wait, is that...
Dragons, a
Wait.
fantasy-
Is this that one Discovery Channel documentary, or was it on Animal Planet? Where they showed, like, the history of dragons or something. It was like a fake documentary about dragons.
made real that I watched enraptured late one school night.
Is it?
And you could say it made me a little obsessed.
Me
Not
aged
just with dragons, but
Yeah.
with the paradox
I can't blame
right
'em.
there in the show's title.
Fantasy
If dragons
equal
aren't
real.
the show asked, how does seemingly every culture, no matter how far apart, have legends of the same creature?
I don't
It's
know.
a question that kind of ruined my life.
Oh god. The dragon paradox. And then again, they're like cultures that are really far away from each other that make pyramid-like structures. But the dragon, who knows? Maybe they saw an animal that's very similar. Just a big snake? I don't know.
There's one
This
obvious
this
solution to
dragon.
the dragon paradox. 7-year-old me would have told you. Dragons are real animals. They can just, like, turn invisible or something, and that's why scientists haven't noticed.
My favorite explanation is the SCP explanation. If you've never heard of that, I don't remember what number was it, but it's called Here There Were Dragons, or Here There Are Dragons. It's a good one. It's really sad at the end, but it's a good one. I liked it.
And to be fair to my younger self, the worldwide predominance of the dragon myth is genuinely remarkable. There is a fascinating anthropological mystery we need to unravel here. But young me wasn't here for that.
Oh shit,
I was
Skyrim.
going to prove that dragons existed as living, breathing creatures. So I went to a primary source. I had a
Tracking
few
and
dragon books when I was
Wow.
younger, but really I had one dragon book.
Dragonology?
Dragonology is the text that truly began to slow cook my mind with dragon fever. These pages seem to contain answers for my every burning question. How dragons breathe fire, how they took flight, the consistency of their dung.
Excuse
and the
me?
whole thing was written from the perspective
Really?
of a fake naturalist. It's really no
Mm.
wonder I treated it like an actual guidebook. It's really no wonder I became so obsessed.
And I wonder if he made
Yet
that
there was
himself.
a problem.
Probably.
None
It looks
of my
like it.
sources were lining up.
Oh shit.
Books and documentaries disagreed on whether dragons were friendly or aggressive, two-legged or four-legged, a few meters long or a few hundred. Looking directly at global myths and legends only frustrated me further. Everything
is it shooting
seemed
beams from its eyes?
inconsistent, like these things were made up. But I wasn't ready to give in.
Unfortunately, they are.
Obviously, I reassured myself, there are multiple species of dragon, and
Oh,
different
what's
cultures
that?
have interacted with different ones. This
Hey,
text
what movie was that? Was that Sleeping Beauty? Is that the dragon that the evil mother turned into? I don't know why I turned
is
on
of
the volume.
dragon, and different cultures
Is it? No, the Page Master. I have that movie too. I think it's the VHS somewhere.
have interacted
1994. That tells you how old I am. I didn't see it in theaters, but I did buy the VHS.
with different
Or
ones.
my mom did.
This taxonomy-based explanation for divergences in folklore was the loophole many of my favorite pieces of dragon media employed anyway. So I began to obsessively categorize the dragons of fiction and mythology, disqualifying interpretations that
Oh.
failed to meet my invented criteria
never
for
saw that
real
movie.
dragons. If a dragon had hair, not a dragon. If it couldn't fly, not a dragon. If it sang about reading, actually
Not a
those
dra-
dragons got a pass. I thought the blue one was cool.
Dragon
Looking
Tales.
back, this full-blown fixation on classification is kind of funny and kind of, I spent a lot of time
Oh, really?
wandering into imagined realms during this period, researching and looking for
It's kind of brave to use your own like home footage for this.
dragons, and though I remember being happy, I also remember feeling isolated. and just generally confused about why everyone seemed to interact with the world so differently than I did. And somehow I thought the solution was to talk about dragons more. I felt that if I could explain the topic well enough, if I could disentangle the taxonomy and solve the paradox, I could, I don't know.
Find one.
So it almost felt like fate when at the peak of my dragon-themed social idiosyncrasy, DreamWorks released the first How to Train Your Dragon film.
Dang, how
a
old
story
were you?
About dragons, but also otherness, maturity, empathy, loneliness, and being an outsider because you like dragons too much. Yeah, it's no surprise this movie struck a chord with my young self. At its core...
Can I be 100% honest? I never watched this movie. I never saw this movie.
How to Train Your Dragon explores why a social outsider might sympathize with or even relate to the non-human or monstrous. At the start of the film,
ooh, how does a wooden door block that?
Desires societal acceptance, which in his Viking culture requires physical strength and an unthinking readiness to commit violence against a demonized other, in this case dragons, two traits he distinctly lacks. When he finally gets the chance to kill a dragon and gain approval, his guilt prevents him from finishing the job.
Aw.
I did this.
Instead,
it was just like, do it.
Nurses the creature back to health. And though Hiccup believes the reason he befriended the dragon instead of slaying it is because he's weak and an overthinker, it becomes clear the real reason is because he couldn't help but connect with the dragon's plight. He encountered a frightened, lonely, ostracized being and saw his own reflection. Now, I'm not going to act like I was conscious of all these themes. I was mainly pulled in by the dragon's designs, the music, which is just what it actually sounds like to ride a dragon, I'm sure of it, and the fact the narrative pauses around the hour mark to show us a detailed classification system. Let's go! Though on some level I connected my experiences to that of the protagonists, I honestly wasn't self-aware enough to do so more than subconsciously. I remember thinking, wow, it sure would be tough to be an overly obsessive social castaway. Good thing everyone thinks I'm the coolest. It can be a challenging thing to reflect on your past self. I was cleaning out my childhood attic recently, and I found some old dragon drawings that brought back mixed memories.
I mean, who hasn't, as a kid, drawn a dragon? I know I have.
Reflections of sitting on my own, creating sketch after sketch. I recall how tightly I pressed the pencil, like I was trying to will dragons into existence through the sheer force of my tiny hand. In the book An Instinct for Dragons, anthropologist David E. Jones theorizes that creating art of draconic monsters is a deep-rooted human instinct derived from an intrinsic fear of reptilian predators. Although most scholars disagree with Jones's findings, I certainly recall my art coming from someplace primal. The truth is, no single explanation for the cultural universality of dragons is entirely sufficient. Looking around the animal kingdom, there's all sorts of species
I don't think that one was a dragon,
might
though.
be sufficient.
Hold up.
Looking for the cultural universality of...
I don't think this is a dragon. If it's the costume that I'm thinking of, it might not be. It might be something different.
Sufficient. Looking around the animal kingdom, there's all sorts of species that might have birthed scaly legends in the minds of ancient people.
Lizard.
Hell, the very word dragon comes from the Latin draconis, a term synonymous with large snake. But not all cultures with dragon myths exist in proximity to formidable reptiles. Dinosaur fossils have a broader distribution, and one can certainly imagine how such remains might also conjure draconic images. But
I think I remember seeing that. Like, not when it first released, but I did watch a lot of these dinosaur documentaries that use footage like that. I really kind of want to watch an actual, like the actual old movie of that type with that animation. I don't know. It feels calming, which is weird to say when you're watching, a Tyrannosaurus trying to murder the Triceratops, but still.
Images. But direct connections are difficult to prove definitively. The anthropological origins of dragons likely aren't a straight line. Fiction is simple. The truth is, well, it's messy. I think that's part of why child me held so
Ooh.
tightly onto the idea that dragons were
Oh
literal
yeah, no,
creatures.
he's not
I
surviving.
wanted
How are
them
you
to be
surviving that?
direct, categorizable, something that I could understand and control.
What is this from?
I could at least know my dragon facts. Perhaps it's only natural for those who struggle or have struggled with human interaction to seek knowledge of the monstrous. I've been rereading Ryoku Kuri's monster-centric manga Dungeon Meshi now that it's being adapted into an anime, and it's
I need to
kind of
watch
wild
this.
how closely parts of it track with my personal experience. Well, in a way. What
Might shit
begins
on
as
the
a
mushroom,
standard
okay.
fantasy adventure narrative quickly goes off the rails. As the protagonist, Laios, an archetypal knight in shining armor, is
Mhm.
revealed to be a monster fanatic determined to study and,
Eat.
cook every creature
Yeah.
in the dungeon. It's
And
like
that makes
Lord
sense
of
with
the
the title.
Rings meets an episode of Chopped. It's
the
so
heck?
unapologetically bizarre. But Dungeon Meshi ultimately offers a surprisingly nuanced reflection on what it means to process the world differently. Through the series, we're shown Laios cannot pick up on
How?
social cues the same way as his peers,
He
nor
pulled that
does he
out of his
recognize that most
armor.
people don't want to hear a never-ending barrage of monster facts. Though often framed through a comedic culinary lens, Laios' desire to
What?
comprehend the non-human ultimately stems from his difficulties connecting with the human. Perhaps Dungeon Meshi's greatest achievement is its ability to pull you into Laios' perspective. Like How to
Ooh.
Train Your Dragon, the narrative is willing to slow down and linger on the
That
granular
looked like a piece of
details
wood.
of its world, getting so specific with food preparation that if you had monster parts on hand, I think you could cook these meals. It's a story just as singularly obsessed with monster biology and their
Mhm.
classifications
And, of
as
course,
its
dragon.
protagonist, and teaches
Do they eat a dragon at the end?
the viewer to think in the same terms. And even if you don't share the same particular enthusiasm, that desire to know a topic inside and out, to fully understand the rules of a subject is, at least for me,
Shadow Tail?
a relatable one. Though my obsessions aren't exactly the same, I've never wanted to eat dragons, I do know what an all-consuming interest feels like.
Would you though? Like if dragons were real, would you try some of its meat? I feel like I'd be curious enough to try.
But no matter how hard
Oh,
I
what is-
tried, it
What is
feels
that
like.
pudgy little thing? Is that what? Why does it look like that? It looks like it got stung in the throat by a bee and it's swollen up. What the hell? It ate something it's allergic to and it's on its last leg before its throat closes up for real.
But no matter how hard
Jesus.
I tried, dragon taxonomy seemed impossible
Look at
to fully
my!
digest.
It's a pot roast. What the fuck is happening? What is this from? It's like a ham with wings. A Christmas honey baked ham with wings.
There was no untangling it.
Oh, this one
The
was
truth I eventually had to face is that the definition of dragons across cultures was looser than my sources had suggested.
fuck is that?
As it turns out, dragons don't exist in the same way that fish don't exist. Okay, that sounds
What?
weird. What I mean is, we all understand what fish are, but
Mhm.
because all land vertebrates are fish descendants, there's no taxonomic definition of fish that doesn't include humans. Lots of
Mm.
animal taxonomy gets blurry in this way. Like, reptiles make sense as a category of similar-ish scaly creatures. But since
Yes.
birds are descended from dinosaurs, they technically fall under reptilia too, which does not feel right. That doesn't mean these terms are useless, just that life's categories aren't as orderly as they seem.
That in
and
itself
folkloric
looks like a bird.
nomenclature, like dragons, work the same way.
Looks like a cat dragon.
In my attempts to make dragons fit
Jason
in
and
a
the
flexible
Argonauts.
structure, I remember following models I'd seen in books, labeling wingless dragons as drakes or legless dragons as worms. But really, all I was doing was applying false rigidity to terms that, in myth, were more fluid. The worst offender was how I called any two-legged dragon a wyvern. And, okay, this is a rant I've been on before, but it's very close to my heart. All over the internet, people still claim that any dragon with two legs is automatically a wyvern. In comment sections for Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, you will find
Call them a
commenters
wyvern?
repeating this like it's doctrine, saying that Tolkien or George R. R. Martin are idiots for giving their dragons two legs. Those are obviously wyverns. And I get it. Believe me, I get it. If there is a person on this planet who gets it, it's me. You want clean categories.
Just keeps going back to that
want
picture.
To be experts, but dragons in medieval manuscripts have never had a consistent number
Holy
of legs.
what?
I wish it were true that wyverns were an exclusive subcategory for two-legged dragons, that folklore divided up creatures like D&D monster types. But mythological taxonomy, like biological taxonomy, is fluid. No matter how much...
That'll just look like a legless lizard and not a snake. Is it a legless lizard? I think it is.
Taxonomy is fluid, no matter how much young me wanted to pretend otherwise.
I do the quick cooking!
7-year-old me would have called this blasphemy. But the fluidity of dragon definitions is something that media framing them as
was that from the...
But the fluidity
of
dragon definitions is something that media framing them as real, frankly, takes advantage of. How does seemingly every civilization, no matter how far apart, have legends of the same creature? Well, they don't. Not really. The definition of dragon is so decentralized that countless, likely unrelated creatures across cultures can be made to seem draconic if you squint. So many of the categories applied to dragons are arbitrary. It's questionable that the relatively modern Western dragons are often called true dragons, considering that the serpentine dragon model more common in other parts of the world is almost certainly older. Yet it's hard to let go, or at least it was for me, to resist that urge to group everything by type. It's hard not to wish dragon classification worked more like...
Let's now turn to Nintendo's newest game, Pokemon.
I think that for a lot of people, the desire for rigid categorization of fictional creatures comes from one franchise in particular. I never had a Game Boy or DS to play Pokemon on growing up.
No,
but
that
I didn't
sucks,
need
man.
to play the games to know I liked their dragons. Specifically, I liked that they were categorized. A series all about types, Pokemon seemed made for me. I remember how ecstatic I was when I finally got my hands on an old Pokemon encyclopedia at a yard sale.
Oh god, I remember
Finally,
those.
I thought, here's a franchise that values creature classification the way I do.
Until he got the Charizard and he wasn't a dragon type.
Pedantic little complainer that I was, I remember vocally objecting to what Pokemon placed in the dragon type. Many of the creatures bestowed that title hardly seemed scary or dragon-y enough to be deserving of the designation. And other Pokemon I thought should qualify didn't make the cut.
Where's Charizard?
I always
There he
figured
is.
this was just a me thing, but while researching for this video, I found out that lots of people share my opinion and have taken to the internet to complain. People have strong feelings about Pokemon classification. A fact I learned...
Is that Scyther in the back? That Scyther is fucking cursed. Holy shit, look at that thing. Look at that thing. That's supposed to be bug type. That just looks like a green Tyrannosaurus. What the fuck? Oh, that Nidoking down there has been seen better days. What is this big guy? Is this supposed to be Lugia back here? Jesus.
When I mixed up the regions in my old Pokemon biology video, which
What the fuck is
still the
that?
mistake I've gotten the most comments about.
What is that?
And I think that's great. Seriously, I understand that kind of passion. But in the case of Pokemon's dragon type, I wonder if we're being a bit too harsh. Dragons in folklore aren't as consistent as we like to pretend. If medieval artists didn't have to limit their imagination with what counted
That's a merpig. That ain't a dragon.
as a dragon, maybe Pokemon artists shouldn't either. Maybe
that's where
things that are
wait, go back on that.
Maybe
that's eyes. Is that his eyes? I always thought those were its ears.
Pokemon artists shouldn't either.
Why would its eyes be like that? What the fuck? Okay.
Maybe forcing things that are made up to follow strict taxonomic parameters is a little
another
limiting.
representation of a dragon?
I actually think the How to Train Your Dragon series is what eventually allowed young me to overcome my obsession with fictional rigidity. Because those films almost completely threw out the plot of the original books, and I remembered not caring. And this was at the age where if an adaptation was even slightly different from the book, I took it upon myself to care. A lot. But these films had their own themes, and needed to rework how dragons function conceptually to fit those themes. In the books, Hiccup's dragon Toothless is this weedy little thing, not an intimidating personification of the unknown, and Vikings and dragons get along from the start. But directors
Really?
Dean DeBois and Chris Sanders recognized a narrative about an outsider connecting with the monstrous required a rework of the established lore. And even young me could admit it made the story better. For the first time, I remember considering if fictional uniformity was perhaps a little juvenile. I wish I could say my fixation on dragon classifications ended peacefully as the natural result of outgrowing the subject. But that's not what happened. On the cusp of my teenage years, fear of seeming immature, of being an outsider, led me to go full scorched earth, trying to erase any record of my childish interests. You might have noticed I used a stock image for my Pokemon encyclopedia.
Oh, you threw that
That's
out,
because
did you?
I threw the real copy away.
What the hell,
And
man?
I wanted to throw my dragon books away too. I would have if they hadn't gotten lost in a box years ago. The same is especially true for my drawings, which to preteen me were, as something I created, an excruciating reminder of the person I used to be. If they hadn't too been forgotten, I honestly might have burned them. And it's hard, even now it's hard, to overcome that fear of childishness. There is still, on some level, someone else's voice in my head telling me I should laugh at and belittle my past self for... what? Having an imagination? I said at the beginning of this video that the question of how so many cultures have legends of the same creature kind of ruined my life. That's honestly not entirely fair. Yes, dragons, a fantasy made real, just appeared on TV one day with footage of what looked like a real scientist finding a dragon's corpse. Yes, that convinced me that dragons were real, kicking off a lifelong fixation. But is that the documentary's fault? The narrator guy does say, what if the legends were true? It was 7-year-old me who heard the legends are definitely true, and it's your job to prove it. To be honest, I was probably always going to turn out the way I did. It's just how I was made. It's a curious thing to be born different. You can feel the shape of this person you were expected to be, and you find yourself wondering why you aren't that person. And I still don't know exactly what's up with me. I don't have the precise label or category for it. I think I'm alright with that. Likewise, as I'm sure you've probably guessed, there is no single solution to the dragon paradox, which, yes, I know isn't strictly a paradox. And maybe it's a grown-worthy conclusion that the real answer was the friends or dragons we made along the way, but that feels right to me. Dragons have been with us since civilization's beginning. It's actually possible that, like most languages, all draconic myths stem from the same ancient root. It's also possible that making dragons is just something that humans do. That we independently find them in pieces of driftwood, in bends of rivers, in the patterns of the sky. There's evidence that a 3rd century Chinese historian labeled dinosaur fragments as belonging to a dragon around the same time peasants did the same thing with whale remains a continent away in Central Europe. And when I think about these past humans, linked through how they chose to imagine a more exciting explanation for the phenomena around them, I like to picture a connection across time to my younger self, doing the same thing. I've spoken in past tense a lot in this video, about who I was, the person I used to be. But I mean, a quick glance at my channel and the sheer number of dragons and creature classification videos I've made, and it's clear that's all still a part of me.
Oh yeah.
I've just found ways to manage my obsessions and channel them into new outlets, and though teenage me might be mortified, I think it's important to make peace with your past selves instead of trying to bury them. While making this video, sorting through the remnants of my childhood, I started thinking about how I haven't drawn anything in a while, so I picked up my pencil again. Dragons still fascinate me, and it's clear they still fascinate the world as well, continuing to be part of culture, changing forms as worldviews shift, never but so beholden to strict categories. I wouldn't want it any other way. And as always, thanks for watching. This ended up being more of a personal essay than I had anticipated, but hey,
Yeah,
if
it's
you
kinda-
enjoyed this entry, please lend your support by liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification icon. It helps me out tremendously. See you in the next video, and stay curious.
Kind of started out as a video about dragons, but it then turned into a video about his personal growth. But I guess it kind of works. Rain World? What the heck? Most complex ecosystem in any game. Wow. Really? Is that what that little thingy was? That game? It showed at the end here of this
To
guy.
make peace with your past selves instead of trying to bury them. While me might be mortified.
Is that? Yeah, it looks like the main character. But no, that was definitely an interesting video. Far different from what I was expecting it to be. I was I was expecting more talk of dragons, but it was kind of 50-50 on dragons and I guess growing up would be the word is. But that was makes you think of some things. But yeah, no, that was a good watch though. But yeah, if you wanna check out this person's channel, it's definitely in the description as well. The little icon at the top right. Actually, not right now. It will be at the beginning of the video. But yeah, guys, till next time, thank you for watching with me, and goodbye.